Please join me in welcoming the Acting Prime Minister, the Honourable Mr. Aiyaz Sayed-Khaiyum. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to acknowledge, of course, the Governor of the Reserve Bank of Fiji, the President of the Suva Retailers Association, the Permanent Secretaries who are here. I can see the Permanent Secretary for Economy who's here, Your Excellency from Georgia, and Navi Raju, of course, our host, and the Fiji Care team. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be very brief, but essentially to thank, of course, the organizers for invitation this evening. On Saturday evening, I was actually in Ba, where there's a similar turnout, perhaps not as many people, because Ba is a smaller town. And there was a launch of the Johan Realtors. He's opening up a branch in Ba. And next weekend he's opening up in Lautoka. And there's quite a few people who spoke before me, and I did mention to them that one of the issues, of course, regarding real estate is that a lot of people invest in real estate purely for the reason that it's going to appreciate in value. And if it appreciates in value, you have the ability to get a better rate of return, in particular from rental premises, or indeed if you're going to sell the premises. And the way that real estate operates, as you all know, is that there needs to be a particular level of confidence in the market, but more importantly than that, there needs to be stability in the market. The past 18 months to 2 years has been unstable because of the unknown. The reality is that the pandemic has posed or poised a number of problems for us globally and of course domestically for individual countries. Different countries have dealt with it differently. Different countries have had, whether they've had higher rates of infection, low rates of infection, high rates of death, low rates of death. In some countries, for example, the elderly population has been affected dramatically. In others, it's been the more younger population. But the fact of the matter is it has been a very unstable period. We have in Fiji, of course, dealt with that by having a long-term strategic goal. And once the vaccines were developed, even before the vaccines were developed, we were already talking within government as to how to access vaccines. I recall having a number of Zoom meetings where we talked to organizations like the World Bank and various other organizations in anticipation of the vaccines, saying we need to get access. Because as you know, for many developing countries and small countries, accessibility was a problem, and for many it still is a problem. So the diplomatic positioning and maneuvering by the government has meant that we were able to access those vaccines free of charge, and indeed have the right amount of vaccines available for us to get the adult population vaccinated. So we today are one of the very few countries in the world where over 90% of the entire adult population of this country is now fully vaccinated. We have now started between the ages of 12 and 17 to get vaccinated. Again, using another variant, if you like, or another type of vaccine. There's about 102 to 105,000 citizens in Fiji between the ages of 12 and 17, a substantial chunk of that population. So again, by getting them vaccinated, we'll be building a much bigger buffer in respect of having any spread of this deadly virus. As a result of this, specific strategy, we were able to open our economy to tourism from the 1st of December. And that, of course, has led to a lot of confidence. And I know, I was talking to your president, he's saying 100% of all the shops have opened up. And it is because of the strategic planning, it is because of the opening of the borders today, we are in that position today. So I would like to urge all of you to please take advantage of it. And as I mentioned in Ba, that those businesses that do the investments or did the investments a few months back or 6 months back were strategic enough to do that, or even if you were to do that now, you'll be able to reap those benefits or reap benefits from it in the next 2 to 3 years' time ahead of many others who actually have a wait-and-see game. I do not need to teach you how to run your businesses, but those people who always position themselves or pre-position themselves will always achieve the maximum benefits. We have provided in this year's budget a significant amount of incentives and tax concessions for those people who want to invest in the long term. So I would urge you to do that. These are some long-term investments. Similarly, there are a number of investments you can do on a short-term basis. And it brings me to the point, I mean, if you see that product that Fiji Care is offering, the $52 a year to provide that type of coverage for your staff will not only give them security, but also help you build a type of relationship with your staff and the level of commitment by your staff that you probably won't get if you weren't able to offer that type of product. So please think about those aspects. The other aspect that I think you need to be aware of also is that the market, the global market, has become phenomenally sensitive to pricing. As you know, there's a number of articles, those of you keep up to date with what's happening. The price of fuel has gone up significantly, completely outside our control. A lot of literature is now coming out that the cost of freight will go up too, before it kind of levels out. So notwithstanding these kind of market influences on the products that you will sell, on the products that you will import, you also have to be aware that you need to be price sensitive to yourself too, I mean for yourself. As we've mentioned to the tourism sector, at the moment you have tourists that are looking at, firstly, what are the countries that are safe enough for us to travel to? So there's a particular level of health sensitivity. And you need to be health sensitive too. Various medical protocols that you have to follow. Secondly, if I'm sitting, for example, in Sydney and looking at coming to Fiji, and if I've got a family of 4, I have to do a pre-departure PCR test in Australia. Assuming they charge $250 Australian each, that's $1,000 gone. Then I come to Fiji, within 48 hours I have to do a rapid test. Assuming it costs you 40, 50 bucks a pop, that's $200 gone. And before I leave for Australia, going back to Sydney, I have to do another PCR test, so they'll accept me, so I don't have to do quarantine back in Australia. That's another $1,000 gone. So if I'm sitting down and planning, and I'm looking at the rates being offered in Fiji, looking at the PCR tests, looking at the room rates, looking at the price of food and beverage in Fiji, and then I have Vietnam or Phuket or Langkawi or Bali offering me pricing that perhaps a lot more cheaper than Fiji, guess where I'll go to? We have to understand this, critically important. It's perhaps more directly related to the tourism sector, but it's also related to you too. Because the business model needs to change. How we run our business, what do we want? Do we want a share of the market, or do we want to make a killing on each sale? So if you want longevity, if you want durability in your business, you have to think for the long term. So these things are critically important. And obviously when tourists come to Fiji, some of you may actually have shops in Nandi, or you may have shops in Lautoka. What type of price ranges are you offering to the tourists who want to do retail purchase? It's very, very important to understand that. It brings me to the point, and I'd like to thank Avi for this. One of the issues that he did not actually highlight in his presentation is that Fiji Care is currently participating with the Fijian government in the provision of general practitioner services to members of the public. Most of you in this room can afford to go and visit a private general practitioner. If you've got a flu, you'll go to a private general practitioner. A lot of people in Fiji cannot afford to go to a private general practitioner. They cannot pay the $25 or $15, or in some towns, $10. So we decided as a measure to ensure that we have less pressure on the public health system, to increase the level of services available to members of the public, we advertised and asked general practitioners who could actually participate in this space and who could offer services to these people, and we will actually pay their fees for them. And just to demonstrate what I was mentioning earlier on, the point I was trying to make. We then received a submission from the General Practitioners College saying, we want to charge one rate. You deal with us as an association and we'll charge one rate. And we said no. Because the cost of running a private GP practice in Ba is far more different to running a private GP practice, say, in Cumming Street. Because the rent in Cumming Street is far more than downtown Ba, or Navua, or Lambasa. So we eventually managed to break that monopolistic approach. So today we have about 21 GPs who are participating in that space. Government obviously has not done this before, but we are providing the funding for it. We don't have the expertise. And Fiji Care actually stepped up on the occasion. So for us, they are currently providing for the next 1 year, or for this year, their services free of charge to us to be able to monitor the invoices that are sent to us by the GPs. And we're very thankful for them, for that corporate social responsibility aspect they filled out. And it's been great help to us too. Because it's critically important. We believe in engaging the private sector, whether it's in medical services, whether it's any other type of services. And we need to be able to work and have the acumen of the private sector to be able to ensure that those schemes are run properly. The other aspect, of course, that Fiji Care also worked with us is the Care Fiji app. The Care Fiji app, in fact, is an app that was developed in Singapore. So in the discussions we had with the Singapore Foreign Minister, we talked about it. They were able to give us the source code for free, and we really appreciate it. I'd like to, again, to put on record how the Singaporeans helped us to access that. And then we worked, our Ministry of Communications and the Digital Fiji team worked with the Fiji Care, and we developed this app that was tweaked to the Fijian circumstances. Similarly, I would reach out to you and say that there are many things that you can also do as an organization. It does not require much investment, but it requires creativity. It requires an understanding that if we are able to achieve some of these outcomes and these objectives, it's for the benefit of everybody. It's for the benefit not just of your businesses, but the overall business environment. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to thank Fiji Care for that, but I also wanted to impress upon you that we have now been given this opportunity where the economy is opened up. We've got, for example, I know some businesses have benefited from the $200 million loan facility that government has provided. The bulk of those loans, in fact, have been disbursed by FDB. BSP and Bread Bank have participated in that, and so has Home Finance. Unfortunately, Baroda, Westpac, and ANZ have not, and I don't have any qualms in saying that publicly. In this particular scheme, with the $200 million allocation we've made, government pays your interest rate for the first 2 years. And the principal payment for this particular loan, you don't have to pay for the first 2 years either. So essentially, for 2 years, there's no repayment requirement on the business that has the ability to access these loans. To give people the ability to stand on their feet, to provide the working capital, whatever expenses they need to meet from that, and then be able to then forge ahead with their businesses. I'd like to thank all of you who participated in that space. I'd like to, of course, thank all the financial companies that have also participated in that space. I think this is an exciting period. If we are able to forge ahead in the way that we expect, the growth rate obviously next year will be quite high, and the year after that too, because obviously we're starting from a lower base. Our foreign exchange, our foreign reserves, I should say, is in a very healthy space. There is a lot of liquidity in the market. The interest rates are fairly low comparatively. Please take advantage of that. Please take advantage of the various incentives we've provided in the budget, because as I said, those who will actually invest now will be able to reap the benefits when the economy runs ahead at full throttle. And I'd like to also thank the Governor of the Reserve Bank and all the other stakeholders that actually have provide a stable macroeconomic position that we are in. And in the next few months, of course, it will be very critically important for us to be able to ensure that we maintain that stability. And we look forward to working with all the stakeholders, including yourselves. Your president highlighted, it may sound very simple, but things like, turning on your lights outside your shop in the evening plays a very critical role. It does not cost that much. But to have your city well lit up, to have your Christmas lights displayed, gives people the confidence. It creates that particular sense of, from happiness to confidence building. When people are happy, people spend. You will benefit. So please think about it from a long-term perspective. There are certain corridors in Suva at night, it's almost pitch dark apart from the street lights. You can contribute by even turning on one light outside your shop, and it will help significantly. Because at this point in time, what we require is that level of input from all the stakeholders, on a very small basis, which will lead to obviously a much bigger change overall. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you all for your participation. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you to Fiji Care too. I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and of course a very prosperous and Happy New Year. Naka, thanks.